Mr. Mukund Malvankar. I already shared his biodata with you. He is having a very vast experience in solar. He started his career with Tata Motors, rather Telco. Then he was also CTO of Anand Group, so many assignments. And then now he is with Bharat Forge and working on the projects related to solar energy. We are all aware about the solar and its applications, but more focus is on climate change. That is what we are observing, and how solar energy is one of the solution. So without spending much time, I will request Mr. Mukund Malvankar to start his presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you. And thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you and address the most important issue of our times, climate change. As a matter of fact, I would call it a climate emergency. I have been a very shy person but an ardent environmentalist for many years. I have decided to be outspoken henceforth, as we have limited time left with us to act to avoid a climate catastrophe and save our species from a tragic but certain extinction. These few lines may sound harsh and alarmist, but unless we act fast and on war footing, we will not be able to change the course of events to effectively mitigate the doom that we have brought upon ourselves. Today, I will first explain the reasons for climate change. This to me is most important because we need to understand the cause for the dramatic changes that we see all around us. I also want to establish that this analysis and conclusions are based on hard scientific evidence. After this, I will discuss the effects of climate change, which are already assuming epic proportions. Lastly, I will list down actions which all of us can, should, and must take to save ourselves and our future generations from disastrous extinction. We will then end today's seminar with questions and answers. The title slide says it all. See the mother bear trying to save her baby from the melting ice. She's also looking at the grieving old lady whose house and the whole neighborhood is on fire. The mother bear is asking her, what have you done to your civilization and to all other species living on this planet? That too, just because of burning of fossil fuels? I would like to conduct a poll and ask you a question. Why are you attending this Zoom meeting? A, to gain knowledge about climate change. B, gain knowledge about solar energy. C, both of the above. And D, get ideas about new business opportunities. So I would like to tell me which of the 4 reasons you are joining this seminar for. So keep these 4 questions in mind and we will proceed further. We will start with 4 simple words: atmosphere, climate, seasons, and weather. On Earth, we have atmosphere. And because we have atmosphere, we have climate. The axis of the Earth is tilted at 23 degrees. Hence, we have seasons. And because of climate and seasons, we have weather. 4.6 billion years ago, 12 or 14 hot gaseous lumps were thrown out from the sun. We are very lucky that the fourth lump had just the right mass as it cooled down to form planet Earth. Gaseous atmosphere formed around it. Thanks to this atmosphere, we have water and life on planet Earth. No other planet has any blanket around it, and hence no water and life. This slide shows us the layers of atmosphere, their names, heights, and temperature profiles. If we had not had this 700-kilometer thick blanket around us, the surface temperature of Earth would have been minus 18 degrees and no life would have been possible. The concentration in Earth's atmosphere, CO2 concentration in Earth's atmosphere. This plot shows the concentration of CO2. The concentration of CO2 is measured in parts per million. That means if we take million parts of air, how many parts of CO2 are existing in that? And this plot is for the last 800,000 years, that is 8 lakh years. And the CO2 concentration varied between 280 and 180, and you can see this. However, in the last 200 years, we see that the concentration of CO2 is climbing very steeply up. Today, the CO2 concentration is 416 ppm, which has been unprecedented. And if we do not do anything, by 2100, this concentration will go up to 900 ppm. Look at this slide. Here, the concentration of CO2, global temperature, and sea level are plotted. This clearly shows that whenever, and this is for last 400,000 years, this shows clearly whenever the CO2 concentration goes up, so does the global temperature, and that is followed by the sea level rise. So there is and this effect is called the greenhouse effect. And that is plainly because of the CO2, increasing CO2 concentration. This shows the energy balance of the Earth. The amount of energy received by Earth is same as what goes out. Then the temperature of the Earth will be in equilibrium. The blue arrows show visible light. The red arrows show infrared radiation. The Earth system was well in balance for the past 12,000 years. This stability gave us a chance to upgrade ourselves from hunter-gatherers to agriculturists. Humans came out of caves and established civilizations. However, rapid progress of science and technology unleashed unprecedented powers to interfere with nature. 2 centuries of ever-growing human greed has altered this very delicate balance. The numbers at the bottom, if you total up, and the numbers of the top, if you total up, you will see that the Earth system was in balance. CO2 has 2 very damaging attributes. The first, that it lingers in the atmosphere. It lingers in the atmosphere for 200 years. And the second, that during its lifetime, it retains 65 times more heat than the heat that was released during combustion. This balance is shown here. On the left-hand side, you have a natural greenhouse effect with the balance system. The solar radiation is received by Earth. It is reflected back. Some of it is re-reflected back to the Earth. And because more heat is going out, the Earth system is in balance. The right-hand side shows the effect of human enhanced greenhouse effect. Because of CO2 in the atmosphere and methane and nitrous oxide, more infrared radiation is reflected back to the Earth, and hence the Earth temperature goes up. While researching on this, I found this NASA site, and I want all of you to have a look at it. It will take just a few seconds to open. This is a very interesting and interactive site. This is called Climate Time Machine. It shows you the sea level, sea ice, sea level, carbon dioxide, and global temperature. So let us look at the carbon dioxide on Earth. And it gives you an interactive tool to change. This is how the carbon dioxide ppm was in 2002. And as you start sliding this, you will see we have now come to 2006. We are about 350 ppm. And we go forward to 2008, 2010, 11. And this chart is up to 2016. So in 2016, we are saying that in the upper atmosphere, the CO2 concentration has gone up to 425 ppm, very dangerously high. And I want you to go to this site and play with it. Then you will understand the science behind this. Look at this slide. This is the global temperature. And it gives you data from 1884. That is when recorded temperatures on Earth are available. And when you slide this towards 2021, you will see how much more the temperature has gone up. And you will see that on the northern hemisphere, the temperature has gone up to 4. So people ask, why you are talking about 1.5 degrees? How 1.5 degrees is going to cause so much? But at the polar side, on the poles, this temperature goes up much higher than the average temperature on the Earth. Now that we are clear why we have global warming, we need to look at what is going to happen if the temperature goes to 1.5 degrees more. I have taken this slide from the Intergovernmental Panel, a report which was filed 6 months ago. It was called AR6, Assessment Report 6 of this Intergovernmental Panel. What they are predicting is extreme heat events at 1.5 degrees will affect 14% of population. But if we allow the temperature to go up to 2 degrees, 37% of the global population will be affected. The sea ice free Arctic, that means the North Pole having no ice. This event at 1.5 degrees will happen every 100 years. If you go to 2 degrees, every 10 years. That means 10 times worse. Another biggest effect, bad effect of climate change is loss of biodiversity. And this side shows the loss of biodiversity. The species loss at 1.5 degrees is 4%. At 2 degrees, it would be 8%. The species loss of insects, which do all the pollination and hence make our agriculture possible, it will be 6%. But if you go here At 2 degrees centigrade, it will be 18%. Now let us look at the ecosystems and the effect of global warming on ecosystems, on permafrost, on crop yields, and what is scary, if you look here, the coral reefs. Coral reefs are formations of colonies of various marine species under the water. You must have heard them. They're so beautiful. Thousands of different species live there. At 1.5 degrees, it is estimated that between 70 to 90% of coral reefs will be destroyed, will be extinct. And at 2 degrees centigrade, 99%. That means no coral reefs will be remaining if we allow the temperature to go to 2 degrees. Weather patterns will be disrupted. It will lead to extreme events like flash floods. You have seen the evidence of that in Germany last year. Severe droughts will occur with high frequency and unprecedented scale. Now let us look at the culprits for this. What is the breakdown of fossil fuel type with the CO2 emissions? When fossil fuels are burnt, CO2 is produced. When 1 liter of petrol is used, 2.3 kgs of CO2 is produced. If you look at this diagram, the blue is the use of coal, oil is in orange, and dark blue is gases. So 70% of emissions are because of coal and oil. And if you include gas in that, it goes to 90%. So 90% of emissions are caused by 3 fossil fuels: coal, oil, and gas. What needs to be done to keep the warming to less than 1.5 degrees? This is from the same assessment report. Climate action that we have to take. We have to ramp up to renewables 6 times faster. That means if we are implementing solar energy, wind energy, tidal energy, we have to do it 6 times faster than what we have been doing. The transition to electric vehicles must happen 22 times faster. Increase of tree cover must happen 5 times faster. Phase out of coal power must happen 5 times faster. Increase of low carbon fuels must happen 8 times faster. This is how fast we have to act if we are to limit the temperature of temperature rise to less than 1.5 degrees. Now I will talk about something called carbon budget, and which all of us must understand. The carbon budget is amount of CO2 in gigatons that we can emit before we reach the limit of 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees. The two circles at the bottom show us amount of CO2 we have already emitted. We have already emitted, starting from Industrial Revolution, 2,475 gigatons of CO2. If with a 50% likelihood, we have to limit the temperature to 1.5, only 420 gigatons is left. So starting from 2021, we have 11 years, but this is a bad probability. We would like to have better probability. And if we go to 75% likelihood, that means we have better chance of succeeding. Then the budget left at the present consumption level, present emission level is only 9 years. And that is why we must act fast. Now let us look at India as a country. As long as the emissions are concerned, we are the 3rd largest in the world. First is China, then USA, and then India. We have 7% of emissions, global emissions. Every year, we belch out 3,347 million tons of CO2. However, if you look at the most vulnerable countries, we are the 20th. That means we are more likely out of the 196 countries, we are the 20th most vulnerable country. One redeeming feature has been that our per capita emissions are low. They are just 2.47, and we are ranked at 151 in the whole list of 196 countries. Are you interested in what I'm talking? Should I continue or not? Well, I will tell you a story of Ram Setu. When Ram Setu was built, Ram wanted to go from the southern tip of India to Sri Lanka. And he wanted to build a bridge. So he started building a bridge. When he started building a bridge, many animals came, many insects came, and they all contributed whatever they can to make that bridge happen. And that is why it is very important that all of us must contribute to redeeming ourselves from this responsibility. And as they say, the squirrels who would roll in sand and go and drop that sand. In Marathi, it is called Kharicha Vata. So let us all take up our Kharicha Vata and do something good for the future generations. Now we have the remaining carbon budget to limit the temperature. There are two major actions that we need to take. One, stop using fossil fuels. This will help us to reduce our emissions. Unless emissions are reduced, we will not be able to limit the temperature. Second, we will start drawing back the CO2. We have to start drawing back the CO2. Today, because of lack of time, I will only talk of this. If you give me an opportunity, next time I can talk about this. The sun is the primary source of energy on Earth. It's the only source of energy on the Earth. All the energy that we get is, all that the energy we use is come or has come to from the sun. It is the most abundant source of energy, and it is an eternal source of energy because it is estimated that sun is going to last another 3 billion years. Another very important aspect that it is well distributed over the whole world. Look at this diagram on the left side. This yellow circle represents the solar energy that we receive every year, and that is 23,000 terawatts. It is 15 times more than the natural resources that we have of coal, uranium, oil, and natural gas. Now look at how much consumption we have. In the whole world, all the human endeavors included, our industry, our transportation, our agriculture, we require 16 terawatts. So what sun provides to us in 1 hour will be sufficient for 1 full year. This is how abundant solar energy is. Now look at this. Solar plant has no moving parts, so less failures. It has the least gestation period. Once you decide that you want to go solar, within 1 month or 2 months, the solar power plant will start producing solar energy. It produces no byproducts. It produces no heat. It is easy to implement, and I would recommend that every house and every building should have a rooftop solar plant. And today it is economical. 10 years ago, it was not. Another very important reason, here I have depicted different sources of energy and how much water they consume for producing 1 megawatt hour of electricity, which is enough to power 1,000 homes. If you look at solar photovoltaic, that's what I'm talking about. It requires only 26 gallons to produce 1 megawatt hour of energy. If you look at coal, it requires 600, almost 700. So obviously solar energy would require less water, so we should go for it. Here I will show you the conversion of solar energy to electrical energy. The sun's energy falls on this solar panel or the bank of panels. This panel convert that solar energy into electricity. This electricity can be used to charge the batteries, or it can go to an inverter, and that inverter will then convert it to AC, and in your house, all utilities, all equipments can be run. The inverter can also, if the house does not want electricity or the battery is fully charged, the solar energy is inverted and it can be fed back to the grid. This is called a hybrid solar system. That means you have storage as well as export. This is a solar photovoltaic system, on-grid system it is called. That is because there is no battery here. When the sun shines, the solar panel converts it into DC electricity, and the inverter converts it into AC, supplies to the house, and if house doesn't want, it gives back to the grid. These are some typical solar installations. You can install solar panels on gardens, your private gardens, or roofs, or office building roofs, or factory roofs. They can be installed on land also, private land as well as public land. All the grid scale plants are land-based. How many of you would like to invest if the returns are more than 20%? This means that what you invest will be repaid back to you in less than 5 years. So this is a business opportunity also. Now I will start with 4 case studies. This is my house. I use a 5 kilowatt solar system, which was previously autonomous, and now 2 years ago I have made it grid tied. Look at my consumption from the grid. It is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. In the last 10 years, I have generated 25 megawatt hours of electricity. This is equal to 20 tons of CO2 emissions. We would have required 120 full-grown trees to absorb had I not used the solar energy. Moreover, in the last 2 years, I am using EV, so I don't require any petrol. So I have saved 900 liters of petrol, which is equivalent to 2 tons. So my EV gets charged from my solar system, and I have moved away from fossil fuels and saved 20 plus 2, 22 tons of CO2 emissions. This is my friend's house. We installed a 8 kilowatt rooftop system, grid tied. His bill was 17,000 per month. And after installing in June, the bill has come down to an average of 4,000 per month. So saving is 13,000. He invested 4.5 lakh rupees in the solar rooftop, and he is saving 1.56. So in 3 years, his investment is paid back. I did encourage Bharat Forge to go into solar rooftops. So this is the installation of 100 kilowatts on our innovation and technology center. We got a payback period of 2.3 years as this was a commercial rate. So we saved 14.5 rupees per unit. So total cost was paid back in less than 2.5 years. This is another factory of a Bharat Forge Group company where the whole roof of the factory and the utility building and the parking was covered to generate 800 kilowatt hours. We invested 3.5 crores and we got back, and this would be, the payback period would be close to 4 years. Now I will explain to you how to get solar systems installed in your house. First, you have to analyze the capacity requirement, the present bill, power consumption pattern, future, and this holds good for your factory also. Choose the location based on the space requirement, shadow analysis, and the type of structure. There is a very simple calculation. If you want 1 kilowatt, if you install 1 kilowatt of solar power, you will generate about 4 kilowatt hours per day, which is equivalent to 120 units per month. You will require an area of 60 square feet and the cost would be 50,000 rupees. If you do that for 3 kilowatt hours, your generation every day would be 12 kilowatt hours, 360 units per month, 200 square feet area, 1.5 lakhs. If you do for 7 kilowatt hours, 28 kilowatt hours will be generated, 840 units per month, 500 square feet area, and your cost would be approximately 3.5 lakhs. So after doing this, you review the quotes, choose the vendor wisely, award the contract, install the system, keep the pan, and one important thing, except for cleaning the panels, you don't have to do anything for the next 20 years. Enjoy the benefits for the next 20 years. If you need any help, you can call me for making this transition to solar energy. There are some disadvantages also of using solar energy. Now this is, I'm showing you the plot of generation of energy yesterday on my house. And you will see that there is no generation up to 7:30 and there is no generation after 5:30. So this is not available round the clock. Hence we need storage. Second thing is there are sudden variations. If a cloud comes, when the cloud comes, the energy output just drops. So these sudden variations have to be balanced by the grid, and the grid needs to be stabilized. That's why we require some limited storage on the grid also. Here, there is seasonal variation over the whole year. So this is a chart of energy that was generated for 2 years on my house. And you will see at summer, I was generating more than 600 units, while during rainy season, I was barely generating 400 units. A grid-tied system, another disadvantage is a grid-tied system stops when there is no grid supply. In case of failure of, in case the grid failure is frequent, then you have to go for a hybrid system. Hybrid system requires storage. Now I would go to what actions we should take as individuals. First is to stop use of fossil fuels without any further delay. We are today emitting 40 billion tons of CO2 each year. Use renewable energy like solar, wind, and tidal. Every house, every factory, every office must have a rooftop. You will be surprised. I got into this because while working for Bharat Forge, I was visiting Germany every month or every alternate month. And every time I visited Germany, I saw more and more installation. This was around 2005, 2006 timeframe. More and more installation. And then I started thinking that in Germany, they have only 120 days of sun. In India, we have 320 days of sun. Why are we allowing this energy to be wasted? And then I started my work in this and I did it myself. My house has not required outside grid energy for the last 10 years. We should switch over to electrical vehicles, walk, cycle, or use public transport, reduce international travel as much as possible. And the new technologies like Zoom, Google Meet, allow us to do that. Use less material goods, no more binges, binge shopping. If you ask me, I have a 4R formula. Refuse. If somebody says, oh, there is a sale, let us go and buy. Refuse, don't buy. Reduce your usage. Reuse items. Recycle. The third thing is get involved with forest restoration projects. It is the best way to suck back all the CO2 from the atmosphere. Plant as many as trees you can, nurture them, look after them. You can join our NGO. We have started an NGO called Forest and Wildlife Foundation. I recommend everybody to be vegetarians. The carbon footprint can be reduced by half just by changing your diet pattern. Avoid wastage of food, because today in the world, 40% of food is wasted. And last but not the least, only vote for candidate who is committed to environment and promises to take policy action to mitigate climate change. Which actions businesses must take? Now, this is relevant to all of you if you are in business. Evaluate the business risk because of climate change. Every business makes a strategic plan for 10 years, and you are going to see bad effects of climate change over the next 10 years. Based on this, formulate a strategy in your business by taking mitigating actions, stopping use of fuels, fossil fuels, and go to use of renewable energy. There are certain adaptation actions, like for example, if you're near a river and there are chances of flash floods, then you have to protect your business by building walls. Today, New York, Long Island is building a wall which is 7 meters tall from the sea to save it from the dangerous sea level rise. Draw a plan for the next 10 years so that you transition to zero emissions. Invest in circular economy. There was a very nice experiment called Solar Impulse. Solar Impulse was the first aircraft that went around the world which was driven only by solar energy. And this site, I want all of you to visit. I will just visit that site, and you will see hundreds of different possibilities that are emerging for while we transition to renewable energy. And this is a very interesting site, and you must also visit this site. You will get different business ideas. This site lists down 1,360 different solutions and business opportunities. So each opportunity is mentioned here, and you can visit this site. It's an interesting site. Different things people have been doing to save and go towards circular economy. So you will get thousands of ideas, some relevant to India, some may not be. The actions, if you're having an important position in the local bodies like the municipalities or the local government, then I have listed down the actions which we must take. Make and implement a plan for going carbon neutral in the next 9 years. Our country, we don't see this plan. We make big headlines, but we don't make plans. If you go to Australia, if you go to New Zealand, if you go to USA, you go to California, you go to UK, they all have made plans to transition to a carbon-free world. All public buildings must have rooftop solar. Convert all public transport to electrical vehicles. Here I must say Maharashtra is leading the way. Pune has got 500 electric buses, and recently Mumbai has announced that it is going to buy 1,000 double-decker buses, which are electric buses. Make bicycle lanes, easy to access footpaths, recycle all the waste, water, food, biomass, and garbage. Develop biodiversity parks on all open spaces. The actions which governments must take immediately. No more expansion of roads, highways, ports, or airports. All infrastructure projects like above should be diverted to renewable energy, building your capacity to transition to fossil fuels. You put a carbon tax on all fossil fuels, use this money. But what is important, we put this tax, but we don't use this money to fund the carbon capture research and build carbon capture plants, which will be required in the future. Encourage investments in renewable energy, EVs, and efficient buildings. Stop development activities in forests. We are destroying our forests. Please, let's start restoring, revive grasslands, and develop technologies to stop burning fossil fuels. This is a 2-minute video, but we can skip this. Come, join us to reverse the climate change by restoring our forests. Let us work together with single purpose in mind, reduce carbon emissions, save ourselves, leave a better world for our children and grandchildren. Any questions?
Thank you, Mukundji. Now we will keep the session open for question and answer. First, identify yourself and then raise the question. Please. There are some questions in the chat box. Probably you can take them.
Can somebody compile and ask, or shall I go to the chat box? What are the major handicaps of solar, increasing solar usage?
Satish Mehta sir is, I think, raised his hand. So, Mehta sir, please unmute yourself and ask the question as well. Ashok Telang sir also want to ask the questions. Okay. So after that, Telang sir, you please unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Yes, sir. Okay. माझं नाव सतीश मेहता. मी प्रोफेसर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स आणि टेलिकम्युनिकेशन मध्ये आहे आणि सोलर एनर्जीच्या याच्यावर बरेच दिवस काम करायचा प्रयत्न करतो आहे. हॅलो, ऐकायला येतंय का?
ऐकायला येत आहे.
हा, तर याच्यामध्ये बरेच काही प्रॅक्टिकल प्रॉब्लेम्स मी स्वतः अनुभवले आहेत. म्हणजे लोकांचे ज्यांना सेल करायचा प्रयत्न केला मी आणि मी स्वतः वापरांच्या याच्यामध्ये एक मोठी लिस्ट आहे. आता ह्या सगळ्याला उत्तर आहेत हे मला माहिती आहे, कारण एक प्रश्न म्हटलं की लगेच त्याचे उत्तर कोणीतरी देऊन टाकतं. परंतु प्रॅक्टिकली जे प्रॉब्लेम्स आहेत ते मला त्यातले काहीतरी मेन्शन करायचे आहेत. बरेच आहेत माझ्याकडे. मी कधीतरी मालवणकर साहेबांशी पर्सनली बोलीन त्याबद्दल.
जरूर जरूर. आय वुड बी हॅपी टू आन्सर.
एक तर काय आहे की सोलर एनर्जी मी सोलर कुकरवर स्वतः थोडंसं घरगुती काम करतो आहे सोलर कुकरवर. आणि सोलरचं पॅनल, पीव्ही पॅनलवर पण मी प्रचार करण्याचा प्रयत्न केला. मी ज्या कॉलेजमध्ये काम करतोय AIT म्हणून, आर्मी इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ टेक्नॉलॉजी, तिथं आम्ही 7-8 वर्षापूर्वी ते इन्स्टॉलेशनचे प्रयत्न केले. ते झाले सुद्धा सक्सेसफुल, चांगले झाले. आता प्रॅक्टिकल लेव्हलला सर्वसामान्य माणसाचा प्रॉब्लेम म्हणजे एक तर माझ्याकडे माझी स्वतःची बिल्डिंग नसते. बिल्डिंग असतील तर तिचं स्ट्रक्चर चांगलं नसतं किंवा ते सोलर पॅनल, सोलर कुकर वगैरे इन्स्टॉल करण्यासारखं. त्यानंतर माझा प्रॉब्लेम असा आहे की माझी नोकरी स्टेबल नाहीये. म्हणजे आय मे स्विच ओव्हर फ्रॉम हिअर टू देअर. मग मी इन्स्टॉल केलेल्या रिइन्स्टॉल कुठं करायचं दुसरीकडे. त्यानंतर इनिशियली इन्व्हेस्टमेंट इतकी हाय आहे की ही सर्वसामान्य माणसाला अजिबातच अफोर्ड होण्यासारखी नाहीये. मी माझ्या घरात एक 17,000 रुपयाचा सोलर कुकर वापरतोय. तो मी आतापर्यंत 100 लोकांना विचारलं की तुम्ही फुकट ट्राय करायला न्या, ते सुद्धा कोणी न्यायला तयार नाही. कारण ते म्हणले टेरेसवर जाणार कोण प्रत्येक वेळेला. प्रत्येकाकडे मोठी बाल्कनी अवेलेबल नाहीये की जिथं सर्व. आता माझ्या बाल्कनीमध्ये मी सोलर कुकर लावलाय, परंतु आजूबाजूच्या बिल्डिंग इतक्या उंच आहेत की फक्त 9:30 ते 11:30 एवढंच मला सोलर ऊन मिळतं.
मेहता साहेब, मी बोलू का आता? मला समजलं तुमची समस्या.
नाही, आणखी एकच समस्या, फक्त एकच पॉइंट. म्हणजे पॉइंट्स माझ्याकडे पॉइंट्स आहेत, त्याला उत्तर आहेत हे मला माहिती आहे. आता दुसरा एक पॉइंट की तुम्ही जे म्हणालात की CO2 एमिशन वगैरे, तर माझा मुख्य प्रश्न असा की जर चायना आणि अमेरिका हे जर मेन कल्प्रिट असतील तर मला वाटतं त्याच्याबद्दल आपण काहीच करू शकत नाही. त्या सुपर पॉवर्स. त्याच्यानंतर माणूस म्हणजे ह्युमन बिईंग हा इतका मिनिस्कल आहे पृथ्वीच्या अख्ख्या आकारमानाच्या ह्याच्या, की तोच सगळं कॉन्ट्रीब्युट करतोय का, हा माझा एक मुख्य प्रश्न आहे. तर असे काही याच्याशिवाय बऱ्याच शंका आहेत.
ओके,
आपण नंतर
आता मी सांगू का अदरवाइज विल
हा.
रन आउट ऑफ टाइम.
सर
I
आता
have heard all your
सर्वांना बोलू
questions.
दे.
I have
Yes, sir.
heard all your questions. I would like to answer the last of your question. Human being is minuscule, that I understand. But human being with his intellect has acquired such enormous proportion that it can do harm to the environment. Can you imagine, sir, 40 gigatons of CO2 emissions? Do we understand what is 40 gigatons of CO2 emissions? The largest ship that human beings have built are aircraft carriers, which weigh 100,000 tons, 100,000 tons. That means a lakh of tons is the weight of the ship. 40 gigatons equal to 400 such ship, 4 lakh such ships going into atmosphere every year. So this is the scale at which we are interfering with nature. So your question that we are minuscule is no more valid. And I presented data that showed how sharp the rise in CO2 level has been. I will show you that chart again. Secondly, people will always try to reduce their effort, and that is why I must say that better solution than solar cooker is go photovoltaic. When I started 10 years ago, the costs were prohibitive. Every solar panel, just the panel cost was 120 rupees per watt. Today, that cost has come down to 24 rupees, sir. That time I was required to put the batteries, I was required to put the panels, inverter, and the structure. Today, with the grid-tied solution, you can go to, you require only 2 components, the inverter and the panels. So your cost anyway comes down. Secondly, I am recommending to people to go to the primary source of energy, go to sun, and use microwave or induction cooker in your house to make the food. This is a better solution than the solar cooker.
सर नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आपण अशोक सरांचा घेऊयात. त्यांनी रेज करून बराच वेळ झाला आहात. अशोक सर, प्लीज अनम्यूट युअरसेल्फ.
Yeah, I have done that.
Yes,
सर माझा प्रश्न आम्ही चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये दिलाच होता की मोठे सगळ्यात जास्त कुठल्या अडचणी आहेत. तो अशा अर्थाने आहे की जर आपण अडचणी प्रायोरिटाईज केल्या तर त्या दृष्टीने आपल्याला सोल्युशन सोपे होतील, हा एक भाग. दुसरं की हे ज्या अडचणी आहेत त्यांच्यावरची सोल्युशन्स काय आहेत आणि काय चाललंय हे आपण सगळं लोकांना थोडंसं सांगितलं पाहिजे. त्याशिवाय सोलर युजेज वाढणार नाहीये. आता मी आणि रबडे सर मिळून आम्ही सोलरचे वर्कशॉप करतोय शाळेतल्या मुलांसाठी. पण तो फक्त एक हे आहे म्हणजे सिंबॉलिक आहे आणि ते सौरशक्तीचा वापर वाढावा हा त्याच्यावरचा खरा उद्देश आहे. असा झाला माझा प्रश्न, आपण आता सांगू शकतो.
I had presented this slide. This slide shows some of the disadvantages of solar energy. First, it is not available round the clock. The sun does not shine round the clock. So we have a window of 4 to 5 hours in which we have to capture. And if we want to go 100% solar, you have to store that energy somewhere. Many new ideas and techniques are coming up. I am working with Bharat Forge and we are wanting to create a large storage facility sufficient to store 1,000 megawatt hours of energy in that storage, because that is what Bharat Forge wants, 1000 megawatt hours per day. So we will generate that using renewable energies like wind and solar, store it and use it throughout the day. Many new technologies of storage are coming up, and it's amazing to see all these technologies develop. This problem will, the second problem is sudden variations in the solar output, which I have depicted here in the chart. This is a normal day when there are no clouds, and this is an abnormal day where there are clouds. And suddenly, and if this is going to happen on all rooftops, stabilizing the grid would be most important. So you will require some kind of storage to stabilize the grid. Recently, Elon Musk has done this, and he had put up a battery which is 100 megawatt battery to stabilize the grid in Australia. And he implemented that in 100 days. You must read about it. Second is seasonal variation. And this seasonal variation is from 350 units generation to 600 units. So you must invest in a plant at this capacity and not this capacity. So that means your costs are going to go up. Fortunately, the costs have come down considerably, and the plant that I was trying to show in my presentation, you will be happy to note that the world's largest solar plant is in India, and that is in Rajasthan. And I had wanted to show that video, but because of lack of time, I did not show. So such large plants, the third largest plant is also in India, and that is in Karnataka. Another plant is being made in Kutch, which is going to overtake both these plants. So they will also have to have storage. They will also have to have storage. And we are using unused land to generate this. The plant in Kutch is also going to generate hydrogen. And we can, I would predict that in another 10 years, all the vehicles running on the road would be either electric or driven by hydrogen. As a matter of fact, one of my close friends is working. He has recently come up with a hydrogen driven cycle, and we are designing a hydrogen driven rickshaw, which would be cheaper to operate because the electricity cost generated on these large plants has come down to 2.45 rupees, is the lowest bid at which it was given for the Rajasthan plant, the world's largest plant. And at that level, we can make it competitive even to CNG. So shortly you will see CNG rickshaws being replaced by green hydrogen driven rickshaws. So that is the beauty of human mind. If we need to focus our attention on a solution, on a problem, we can easily find a solution.
Hello, sir. Very good information. Now I request Jagdish sir to please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I am audible, sir.
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
Yeah, my point is that during session you explain regarding the installation cost around 120 watt, 120 unit. You explain around 50,000 cost.
Yes.
So this cost included installation is solar panel, then installation, inverter, and energy meter cost also.
Yes, everything.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Next question, please.
Satish Mehta has a question.
तर हो सर, एक महत्वाचा प्रश्न विचारायचा आहे मला. आमचा प्रॉब्लेम आहे रोजचा म्हणून. मी आर्मी इन्स्टिट्यूट मध्ये आम्ही जवळजवळ 300-350 किलोवॅटची सिस्टीम बसवलेली आहे. आता आमच्याकडे जास्त एरिया अवेलेबल आहे, जास्त कॅपॅसिटी, जास्त सोलर पॅनल बसवायची इच्छा सुद्धा आहे. परंतु MSCBचा जो रूल आहे की तुमच्या काय ते सँक्शन कॅपॅसिटीच्या किंवा काय त्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त तुम्हाला इन्स्टॉल करता येत नाही. तर ह्याच्या पाठीमागचं लॉजिक काय आहे, ह्याच्याबद्दल आपण गव्हर्नमेंट, मला आता समजा माझं सँक्शन कॅपॅसिटी 300 किलोवॅट आहे, परंतु आम्हाला जर नेट मीटरिंगच्या थ्रू
हो.
जास्त एनर्जी जर सप्लाय करायची असेल, इकडे आपण म्हणतो इंडस्ट्रीला एनर्जी कमी पडते
हो.
आणि इकडे तुम्ही बंधन घालताय, हे दोन्ही कसं काय, मला त्याचं लॉजिक कळलं नाही सर.
So the logic I will explain to you. First of all, MSCB is a very bureaucratic and rule-based organization. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm hearing some echo. Can people put their on mute? Yeah. So very regulation based. Last year, they were wanting to, for all rooftops, they wanted to put a charge of 4 rupees per unit of generated electricity as a grid support charge. We all fought with the government and reversed that. I had gone for the public hearing of this, and I was amazed to see there are 50 different tariffs of electricity, starting from a farmer to a big industrialist. Can you imagine the bureaucratic rules if you have 50 different categories of users and another 20 categories of electricity? So this is all needs to change, and somebody needs to drive. And recently, all these manufacturers of solar rooftops have gone to, because they are giving subsidy. The central government and the state government is giving subsidy, and those subsidy rules have been recently revised at the request of the Rooftop Solar Association and by the initiative of Mr. Nitin Gadkari. So slowly these rules will go, but we have to, whatever within the rules, we have to do our maximum to ensure that action happens on ground.
सर फक्त एकच महत्वाचं पॉइंट आहे, मेगावॉटला तुम्ही काही विचारत नाही की तुमची कॅपॅसिटी काय आहे, आणि रूफटॉपला मला तर तुम्ही विचारता की तुमची सँक्शन कॅपॅसिटी इतक्या तुम्ही जास्त उसवू शकत नाही. हे लॉजिक
थोडा प्रॉब्लेम आहे, त्याच्यात थोडा प्रॉब्लेम आहे, बिकॉज स्टॅबिलिटी ऑफ ग्रिड, मी त्याच्याविषयी जेव्हा फाईट केली इन द पब्लिक हिअरिंग, I told them the penetration of solar energy in Maharashtra is less than 2%. Their losses on the network are 12%. So I said, until penetration goes, why are you raising this bogey of stability of the network? Stability of the network comes into picture when the penetration of renewables goes to 30%, like in California. California will reach 50% renewables this year. So we need to change the bureaucracy that is why I said in one of the individual actions that I will put that up again. Only vote for a candidate who's committed to the environment and promises to take the policy action, because here policy action is required to mitigate climate change.
Yeah, I think this subject is unending, and this is not the forum to discuss, sir. We will have a separate, Mehtaji, you can have a separate chat with Doctor. We will take another question. Yeah, please. Last question we will take.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please.
Dr. Mehta, I would like to talk to you offline sometimes.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
please.
sir. नक्की 100%.
Jagdish wants to ask
The last question.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Last question. I think there are no questions there.
Okay.
I should assume.
Okay.
Okay, friends. Thank you very much. It was very interesting and interactive session today. I must appreciate the efforts taken by Mr. Mukund, and really it is an interesting subject to all of us, and harnessing solar energy is a must for our future generations, and we should start practicing and start implementing, start promoting. So Vinyan Parishad Pune is conducting a workshop on 27th February at Institution of Engineers, where school children will be called. They will be trained in harnessing solar energy, various aspects of solar energy, and they will assemble a solar cooker and they will cook the food.